Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the March 19th, 2025 Worcester Township Board of Supervisors business meeting. Would you please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance? My name is Rick DeLello. I'm the chairman of the board. To my left is Lou Betts, who's our vice chair. Our third member, Steve Quigley, is actually participating via this call via telephone. He is also hooked up to this speaker here so that he can both hear and be heard. He had some travel that took him outside of the area, but we did want him to participate in the meeting, so that's the manner in which we are conducting business this evening. First and foremost, does anybody have any informational items for the board this evening?
Mr. Chair, this meeting is being video recorded for broadcast.
Thank you, Christian. First item on our agenda this evening is public comment. We do ask that you limit your public comment to 5 minutes. Does anybody have any public comment for the board this evening? Okay, we got one on either side. We can start right here, and then we'll come over to you, sir.
Jane Voss at Stony Creek Farms. I wasn't able to attend the last month's meetings. I did read the minutes, and I was just wanting an update on what's happening with 1616 Whitehall.
Sure, it'll be a short and quick update because we've filed paperwork. I don't know whether, Wendy, you want to touch it or Dan, you want to touch it, but we can just sort of.
So we filed an action in the Montgomery County Court of Common Pleas for equitable relief and injunction. So that action has been filed and it's pending in the court system.
Okay, and do you have any idea how long that usually takes to be acted upon?
There is a hearing scheduled for April 28th.
Okay.
At the Montgomery County Courthouse.
Okay.
That's really all the information we can provide because it's now a matter of active litigation.
April 28th.
Correct.
Okay, all right. Because I just want to comment that it looks a whole lot worse than it did. I mean, there are so many vehicles parked over there. It's outrageous.
We have photography of
all
within
about
the last week or so. So we're very aware what the situation is out there.
Okay, it's just.
I will add, if there are folks that would like to provide complaints to the township specifically about what you're seeing there, I'd suggest that you direct those to the manager, and we can continue to accumulate that information that will be presented.
The manager of. Oh, I thought you meant our HOA, so.
No.
I think I've been in touch with Dan a few times. I think he has a clue.
So Jane,
Yeah.
ultimately, so we can't talk about it
Right.
because it's active, but if there are specific, what our solicitor is saying is if you have any additional information you want to share in writing to Dan regarding the matter, you're certainly at liberty to do that, and that'll ultimately just be part of the entire record, but ultimately we can't discuss
I understand.
some of the parameters there, but certainly you can continue to communicate anything you're seeing as it's happening going forward at this point as well. You can continue to do that. We just ultimately will continue to accumulate that information.
Okay. And you said that was a public hearing, is that correct? On
Hearing at the courthouse.
Okay,
I believe the public is able to attend.
okay, great, thank you, thanks.
I'll get you in the back as well.
I'd also like to talk about 1616. I know we talked about it last month. I just heard what you said to the last woman who spoke.
If you could just give us your name again, just for the public record, Tim.
Krellman.
Thanks, Tim.
I have a copy of the claim that filed in court. And I don't know how much, you just said you can't talk about it. I know the claim is a public record. I'm looking at it now, and thank you for filing that. It's been a long, kind of arduous journey. I'm sure all the neighbors are grateful. I'm grateful that, you know, this has been filed. But I'm just wondering, you said you can't talk about it because it's a legal issue. However, could you talk about it in general terms? Like, if you're successful, what will this property look like? Will the bulldozers be gone? Will the metal containers be gone? Will the concrete bins be removed, the impervious coverage? Can you just?
What we've done, we have filed an action to bring the property into compliance with the township ordinances. So I can't, you know, as far as what the ultimate outcome of the litigation will be, I can't say, but I can say that we have filed an injunction to bring the property into compliance with all township ordinances.
We certainly, I guess, we certainly have an intention to where we would like it to be, but ultimately it's on the courts to some degree to sort of give us what we're asking for. I mean,
There are private property rights, and again, I can't discuss the merits of the case or strategy with respect to the case, but we are vigorously prosecuting the matter.
Mr. Creelman, just so you know, so parts of the zoning ordinance that we're talking about here are accessory structures, including storage containers, outbuildings, fencing, setbacks of those things along those lines of which there are current violations. Those are the types of things that we're looking on. Impervious coverage is also covered under that kind of catch-all of zoning where they would need to get into alignment with what our ordinances say.
so
Case, we're just going to stop, and it's going to look like, I mean, maybe you can't answer, is it going to stop, just look the way it looks, or is it going to be an attempt to roll it back?
I think it's important to understand that, like the tree clearing, you can clear trees on your property. That's not against the law. So, my expectation would not be seeing a bunch of forestry planted, but basically anything that's currently in violation, the goal would be to get it out of violation into what they're allowed to do on that property.
All right. Yeah, thank you very much.
no problem. So a gentleman here and a woman in the back, either way is fine. Just if you want to come forward. Hold on. We need to get you signed in, and then we need to pull the mic close to you so we get you on the recording if you don't mind.
My name is Laurie Kish. I'm from Stony Creek Farm. I just have a quick question. Would this have been filed as a criminal matter or civil?
No, it's a civil matter.
It is a civil matter. All right. And just once again, and I'll write it to you, again, Mr. Domino, I occasionally hear equipment in the middle of the night. It's not the noise that bothers me. What is a person doing in the middle of the night, of a moonless night, with no lights on their construction equipment moving around? And how are they seeing? I can take a guess. They're probably using night vision goggles. And it sounds pretty sinister. I mean, what he's been allowed to do is just beyond my comprehension. And I appreciate that you filed, and I wish you the best of luck. I hope you sock it to him.
Thank you, Lori. Sir?
Hello, my name is Peter Probst. Let me just finish doing this and I'll... So I'll go in a different direction here from the other folks. I was recently speaking to a friend about the fact that Freddie Hill Farm was closing, which led to a discussion about the future development of that property. And that in turn led to talking about Worcester and the challenges Worcester has had over the years with development, fighting off developers and such, and the cost of doing that. So she mentioned to me that she's in Salford Township, and in her township, she said They're part of the Indian Valley Regional Planning Commission. And she noted that the commission consists of municipalities and boroughs in the Souderton School District. And further, that as a group, they're able to spread out the required land uses among the region instead of in each township. Because of this, they have been able to get around, avoid a number of challenges that Worcester has had to address kind of like on our own, or you guys have had to do that. So she mentioned also that the effort is coordinated through the Montgomery County Planning Commission. So with all of that in mind, my question is, has the township given any consideration to looking into becoming part of that regional planning, something with regional planning? She mentioned to me as well that she talked to somebody from the county, Eric Gerald. He said he would welcome the opportunity to come before the Board of Supervisors to talk about, you know, that whole process, as well as answering any questions and, you know, taking care of whatever you need to know. So I'd like to know if that's something that is doable, and could it be done? Would it be done? There's no obligation other than to learn something.
Sure. So I'll say a couple of comments on it, then I'll turn if Dan wants to add some more of some of the administrative side of it. So the topic of regional planning has come up in the past from time to time, and it hasn't advanced far internally within the township. And there's nothing preventing that. You know, we're always happy to have conversations with anyone in terms of that. I think one of the things we've seen, the challenges in Worcester is getting two people in Worcester to agree, let alone multiple municipalities across a regional plan in terms of that. And that's sort of the biggest challenge to any sort of regional planning would be sort of getting a collective message that's workable. You know, one of the challenges we've had in Worcester is our neighboring municipalities have developed much more aggressively than we have. You know, Whitpain, as an example, has sort of filled every square inch. There is no open, I would say no. I mean, they've certainly aggressively gone after commercial enterprises and things like that. East Norton's done slightly different things to one side. Talmenson's done things differently to the other side. So when you start talking about regional planning, would be wanting to align with municipalities that align with us. And I don't know that we've had that or not. We would always welcome the conversation. I guess the short answer is we'd always welcome the conversation. We'd be certainly happy to have conversation with the county on that topic. Sometimes their needs align with us very well. You know, sometimes they don't. But the biggest thing with regional planning is getting a collective message that everybody can sort of work successfully towards what those regional plans might be ultimately.
And obviously that takes some effort to
Sure.
do. But like just thinking about it, you know, with Lower Providence, Worcester, it's the same school district. So that's kind of like, to me, that's where you start with, you know, you both have different challenges, but like,
Right.
try to find ways to make it work rather than to, you know, and like, well, where are the differences? Why wouldn't we do it? I mean, really.
It's just a conversation. I mean, it's a conversation, and if there's agreement on things, then you can pursue them further than that, for sure. I mean, I can tell you, it just hasn't advanced far to this point. It's not that there's some specific opposition to it necessarily, other than it's, you know, just the steps to do something like that is you know, it's an undertaking.
Yeah. So, is there any possibility that you'd bring somebody from the county in to talk to you guys at a meeting, a public meeting?
Of course, absolutely. As Dan was starting to say in my ear, is we have a work session and a business meeting in terms of our meeting structure. That would be something certainly very appropriate for a work session because it's not an active voting item, but they can come and make a presentation or we can have an open discussion with it. It's certainly something that we can do. Dan, I would just say, if you want to take a look at our calendar and see when that might fit and then sort of poll Steve, Lou, and I on that, and we're not opposed to it at all. I mean, it's just a matter of sort of taking steps to have a conversation. From there, I don't know.
It could lead to. I mean, it's just kind of worth a little bit of time. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter. We appreciate the comments. Does anybody else wish to make public comment to the board this evening? Okay, seeing none, we will move forward with our consent agenda. We're actually going to have a little bit of a chopped up consent agenda because of the meeting minutes. But the first thing is we're going to have a consent agenda that's going to be addressing items 2, 4, and 5, Lou. And what we would need is a motion to approve the consent agenda for, item 2, item 4, and then item 5, and the dollar amounts on the bills. If you could do that, we'll handle that as one motion, and then we'll handle the other ones independently for the different minutes.
So I'm going to make a motion that we approve the consent agenda of 2, 3, 4, and 5, which is January 15 business meeting minutes, February 19 business meeting minutes, treasurer's report, and other monthly reports for February of 25, and the bill payment for the February 25 in the amount of $513,550.06.
So one correction in that is we do need to extract the February 15 minutes. We need to handle that one separately too. But yeah, the rest of that was fine. February 19th. February 19th minutes we're going to extract from that motion. So the motion is going to be for 2, 4, and 5. So the January 15th minutes, the treasurer's reports and the other monthly reports, and the bill payments in the amount of $513,550. So Lou has made the motion. I will second that motion. So it's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment regarding the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes. Okay, next up, I'm going to make a motion to approve the December 18th business meeting minutes. Steve, I'm going to ask you to make the second on that, please.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment regarding the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. And then Lou, I'm going to ask you to make a motion, or I'll make the motion and then you second it. We're going to make a motion to approve the February 19 business meeting minutes. And if you would second that,
I'll
Lou.
second that.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment regarding the motion on the floor? Bob?
Bob Andrew in Worcester. So on page 5 and 6, there's a encapsulation of some of my comments from the February 19th meeting, and specifically going on to the first paragraph on page 6. It says, he, meaning me, explained he had difficulty finding information at Skipback's website and couldn't determine whether Skipback Township funded Skipback EMS. So I did not go back and listen to those specific meeting minutes, but I want to clarify that I can see that Skipback Township does fund Skipback EMS. They have an EMS tax fund. I'm aware of that. What I was trying to articulate, it is impossible from looking at their website how they fund Skipback EMS, if that fund is used solely to fund Skipback EMS, or if they distribute those costs to other individuals. And specifically, we were informed that Skipback is now paying $225 per call. And that was what I was referring to. It is not possible to determine that they have made any additional funding other than looking at they have increased their budget specifically for EMS, but it is unclear how that is funded. And they did receive a large grant from the state for $2 million, which is a one-time deal, and I have no idea if that money is helping to fund that, whether that's an ongoing thing. So I just want to be clear. I can see that they fund Skip Back EMS. To what degree, it is unclear. I could file right to know, but I have plenty of problems here, and I don't have to deal with them. So it's just a clarification.
That's fine, Bob. We can adjust the language that's in the minutes to reflect that. So, is there any additional public comment regarding the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
You got to say aye on this one.
Aye.
Okay. Motion passes. Thank you. Moving forward with the agenda, under the section of motions, first item up is going to be a motion to certify qualified volunteers for the Act 172 Earned Income Tax Credit for 2024. Dan, why don't you take us through this?
Sure. So this earned income tax credit is an ongoing credit that this township has offered for many years now. The chief of Worcester Volunteer Fire Company gives the township a list of qualified members who have run the requisite amount of calls to qualify for this tax benefit, and then a motion is made by the board to approve that, and they're able to, as part of their taxes, go to Berkheimer and receive that earned income tax credit as a small thank you for the service they provide to the township and its neighboring municipalities.
Thank you, Dan. As Dan mentioned, this is something that we've done for the last several years. There's a logistical step where we need to approve it. Lou, if you want to, well, first, do you have any questions, Lou, on the item in front of us?
This is standard operating procedure for a number of years, so there should be no challenges on this, I believe.
That's correct.
So I'll make a motion to certify qualified volunteers for Act 172 Earned Income Tax for the credit for 2024.
And I'll second that.
And I'll second that.
Oh, it's been seconded twice. So it's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment regarding the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes. Next up, we're going to have a motion to approve an agreement for the Variety Club RACP grant. Dan, I'm going to hand it over to you again to sort of walk us through and then answer any questions, and we'll go from there.
Sure. I'll start by just kind of just going over the entire process and kind of how it started. So the Redevelopment Assistance Capital Program, which is abbreviated as RACP, is a state-funded grant funded by the Office of the Budget, administered by Montgomery County, that contributes money to a number of projects throughout Montgomery County, a significant amount of money in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Variety, our local children's charity, has received a grant for $4.5 million worth of that assistance. As part of this grant program, the county, which the county administers, the county requires the local township to essentially sign a cooperative agreement which allows for, if money is somehow mishandled, it's a reimbursement grant, so it would be very difficult to mishandle money because they're only receiving money after work is done, completed, and submitted for reimbursement. But if money was somehow mishandled, that Worcester Township would essentially guarantee those funds. Now, obviously, that then sounds like a pretty raw deal for the township as it stands. So what we have done, and which is a standard procedure all through the county in these cases, is we've drafted and are proposing an indemnification agreement, a private agreement between Variety and us that essentially indemnifies us for that, from that portion of the requirement. So I can't really speak to the details of the legal agreement other than I've seen it, but our solicitors have assured us that this indemnification agreement protects us from any sort of loss or risk to the township financially. And with that being in place, you know, the staff is recommending that this be passed. But I'm happy to answer any questions.
Sure. Let me start with you, Lou, if you have any questions regarding the item that's in front of us, and then I'll turn to Steve and add anything I have to.
Only question, and again, Dan, I guess you're not a lawyer, but you've seemed to be involved in this. In any way, shape, or form, and our attorney on present can confirm this, if there was an embezzlement, and it has happened in different ambulances or fire departments or whatever throughout the country, are we in any way, shape, or form, and I want it on the record, that we are not liable for $1 or any dollars?
The agreement provides that if there is any requirement that would trigger the municipality being required to reimburse funds, that Variety Club would be responsible to the township for those funds. There's indemnification language there, and there is language that even provides that the township could file municipal lien against the Variety Club's property in the event that that event should occur. So this isn't a perfect scenario, but it's the best that we can do under the circumstances.
And I think I just want to be clear too, that this program's been going on a number of years. This has never happened in any grant that has been issued by this program. There's never been a time where this has triggered, because, as I said, it's very difficult to mishandle funding when it's on a reimbursement-based grant.
Right, so let me.
If they were giving them $4.5 million to say, go nuts, it'd be one thing, because then they have to obviously do it. But they're spending their own money, getting the work done, and then being reimbursed for that. So it's difficult to do.
They're spending the grant money from the state, and the only question I have is this.
No, they're spending their own money, and then the grant is reimbursing that money after they've done the work.
After it's complete.
After it's been completed.
A lot of people.
And it's about an 18 to 24-month process that they go through. So we can't say zero. I mean, again, we can't say zero. There's a scenario, but in the history of it, part of the reason embezzlement is extremely difficult is because they're not fronting the money. They're actually, the organization is spending the money, and then there's a whole process that they have to go through to get reimbursed. And then the reimbursement authority has to decide, yes, that's a valid reimbursement to do that. And then later somebody decide that somewhere along the way, something was amiss. So what you would have to do to loop the number of people together.
I get that, but
is,
do we have first position on their property if?
We have access, well, I mean, we would have access to the municipal lien, which would be the land. I mean, which of course we don't want to do, and of course we wouldn't want to do, and of course we don't anticipate that, but that is our protection.
Protecting the taxpayer. And I guess it's a far reach, and I get it. I'm just doing my due diligence and protecting the taxpayer.
Agreed.
And if it's the way this is done in other townships, and the state's pulling us in as a partner, and I've never heard of this, but that's okay.
Well, I can clarify a little bit of this. So I said the same thing, realistically. I said, why is the township finding out about this at a late, that we're going to, want to be signing off on a cooperation agreement for this at a late point in time? And frankly, it's an administrative issue with the county. So I have been in touch with the head of the RACP to let them know that going forward, any sort of grants like this in the township, we're going to need to be notified ahead of time during the application process to make sure that we're okay with this going forward. And I think, unfortunately, while it's a disagreement between me and, what I think and what the county thinks, I think the risk is so minimal, almost nothing, that
It's just challenging and weird the way they're doing it.
yes, by not doing this, unfortunately, the only victim here is the Variety Club.
Yeah, I get it.
So that's the way I'm looking at it.
Steve, do you have any specific questions on the grant? I know you spoke to Dan about this directly. Do you have any specific questions or comments?
Rick, I think we're doing the good thing as a township, stepping forward to help the Variety Club out. Matt Bradford has really worked really hard to help the Variety Club out to get the money. And we're just helping everybody out. And we have made sure that we dotted our I's and crossed our T's to make sure the township residents are protected with their investment. So it's something that Dan has done extensive work researching it. It won't happen again, but we're helping the children out. I think it's really important not to derail this as far as it's gotten so far.
Thank you, Steve. I concur. Lou, I'm happy to make the motion if you'd rather not make the motion.
I'm on board.
Okay.
I'm just going to make the extra comment is that variety club's been there, how many years do you know?
Is it 90? 90 years?
It's been not. So we've been there 1949, have never, ever, ever had a financial incident of any form, fraud or I'm sure we did background check. There's never been an incident, so. I mean, this is about as sure a bet as we can get. If you're happy with that, I'll make that
I'm
motion.
happy. I'm comfortable with it. I'm happy, and I'll make the motion if you'd rather not. If you make it, I'll second it.
I'll make your motion to approve the agreements for the Variety Club RACP grant.
And I will second that. So it's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment regarding the motion on the floor? Bob?
Bob Andor, Worcester. So, like Dan has kind of alluded to, I don't understand, I understand why Matt Bradford, he wants to be sure that his money is being put to good use, but he's now forcing us into an arrangement that we have no vested interest other than trying to be a good neighbor or the co-signer, if you will, on a loan that we have no vested interest in. So where I wish them well and hope everything works out, and I understand that the risk is minimal, it is not zero. I'm not aware, and if you could enlighten me, if the township, Worcester, has ever done this before. I'm not aware in my 20-some years here that I've ever heard of this taking place. And so our solicitor has drafted something. I don't know if they have done that multiple times, if this is a first for them, if they're following suit on what has been done by other solicitors in other situations. But I pose this, I don't wish to have any additional costs incurred, especially on their behalf, but work that the township does, that we have people do work for us. We have a vested interest in that. But we have an arrangement whereby either we demand a performance and payment bond, or those vendors who are doing work for us have that, so that the township is never at risk for the work not to be completed, or that we have any other financial obligation. In this particular case, you're saying our only resolution is to file a lien against them. Again, I understand that the risk is minimal. What that is, I don't know. 0.5%, 1/1,000,000%, I don't know. But $4.5 million, even if it is piecemeal, is putting the township at risk. And our only resolution is to file a lien, expend dollars to try to get some resolution. Is there any other solution that has been explored to mitigate or minimize the township's risk?
We have looked at the potential of a performance bond for a nonprofit the size of Variety. That would be cost prohibitive for them. That would be really the only other option, would be some sort of bond or financial security. If it was some sort of large developer, it might be more rational to do that. But just based off of the size of the organization, the amount of money that would cost, we ultimately didn't think that was something that was feasible to suggest.
Suggest to them, or
Correct.
for us to pursue?
For us to pursue.
Why would we invest the money for a performance bond? We have no vested interest in it.
No, we wouldn't be spending the money on a performance bond. They would be spending money on a performance bond, and a risk analysis essentially has told us that the amount of money that they would have to spend on that is an unfeasible amount of money for a performance bond. On $4.5 million, you're talking 1% to 3% of the bond size in payments on a regular basis. It can get very expensive very quickly. And ultimately, we decided that was, with the security of the agreement, that it wasn't necessary to ask for that.
I hope you're right.
Thank you, Bob, as always. Does anybody else wish to make? Deb?
Deb Walker. I just had a quick question. Say everybody defaults and all that, we would get the property, correct?
That's a process. It's not guaranteed like that. That would be a process. So,
Because I was just wondering, like, how much is the property worth? Is it $4.5 million? So then it wouldn't be as big of a risk.
It's worth a lot.
That's what I figured.
It's worth a lot, but
How many acres they said?
77.
70.
77, I believe, is the acreage, if I'm not
So
mistaken.
So it seems like less of a risk than maybe other people think it is.
So Deb, I think the risk is zero, why I support it, but Bob is correct, it's not zero.
Right.
I mean, I don't want to say, again, in weighing all the pieces, I felt it was close enough to zero that where we are is comfortable and not perfect.
But we would have steps that,
Correct. We would, and the thing that makes me more comfortable is ultimately the process of reimbursement. Like, to get to there, like, there's a lot of there's just an awful lot of things that would have to happen corruptly.
A lot of steps.
I mean, it's not just hey, they got $1 million and they misspent it. You know, that's a lot different risk, ultimately, in my mind, ultimately. That's, again, I don't want to speak for either Lou or Steve. I think they both have articulated their thoughts as well, so.
And it is ongoing reimbursement, so it's not that they build up $4.5 million and apply for $4.5 million of reimbursement. There are smaller reimbursements done extensively throughout the process, so each individual one gets reviewed
Right.
on their own.
In this case, they've done a phase 1. There will be a phase 2 at some point, but at this point, it's simply phase 1 that's been, and again, I'm not, Bob's comments are correct, it's not zero, but certainly we're as comfortable as we can be.
right, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Deb. Does anybody else wish to make public comment regarding the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, next item up is going to be a motion, or first I think there's going to be some discussion, but to approve a resolution providing funding for the Skip Back EMS. Dan, I'm going to ask you to sort of take us through this, and then there may be some questions, comments, and conversation.
Absolutely. So, I mean, as everybody kind of knows, Christian, could you get that up there if you? But as the board and people who have attended our meetings recently know, we have been having ongoing conversations about funding Skip Back emergency medical services. There's been some questions, there's been some comments, there's been some asks for additional information. So we did, what you're seeing up there is ultimately provided for by Skip Back Emergency Medical Services. It is available in the.
Do they have them in the packet too? Okay, so folks, it's in your packet, but there's also up here, the presentation is going to be on the screen as well. Sorry, Dan, go ahead.
And I hesitate to go through every single page of this. Christian, could you just scroll down, please? Ultimately, the issue is Skip Back EMS has approached the township some months ago about potentially funding their operation to some extent. Skip Back EMS, based off the year, has approximately 65 to 80% of our responses in this township as far as service calls for emergency medical services. So they're by far the majority. They service the majority of the calls that come out of Worcester in any given year. It varies year to year. What I've proposed after researching it, looking into it, and having discussions with the board individually is a per diem, a per call reimbursement done on a quarterly basis to essentially assist them in ultimately staying afloat into the future. They are currently turning a profit. It's not significant. The main issue is they need to be able to fund their capital program for new ambulances, equipment, which only gets more and more expensive as time goes on. And there's some concern that at the current amount of money they're pulling in, that's not going to be sustainable in the long term. Part of their problem is is Medicare calls. They are not reimbursed what they spend to actually do the call. So ultimately, yes, you can make a very firm argument that the country in general should figure out how to fund their EMS program in a responsible manner, and it shouldn't be done piecemeal through individual municipalities, but that's not the world we live in. So my understanding is the majority of the board at least has decided this is a worthwhile endeavor. We have reviewed it internally to see if it's something we can absorb. It's obviously not a budgeted expense for 2025. We can absorb it based off of our projected surplus for 2025. Skip AMS requested a payment for 2024. I believe that discussion did not go anywhere as far as the board is interested in doing. And, you know, this is a resolution that it's not an ordinance, so it can be tweaked and updated every month if we need to, until we make sure we get it right. But my understanding is that the board is interested in funding this responsibly. I think it's important to understand that, you know, when you call for an ambulance, you want somebody to be there. And I think we need to make sure that our township residents are covered with for the long term, not just the next year or two, but for the next 30 or 40 or 50 years.
Okay, so I'm going to make a couple comments, then Lou, I'm going to let you make a couple comments as well. So I sort of see it as a two-part problem, or a two-part situation. I won't even say a problem. You know, so there's a measure of saying, to your point, Dan, what's the long-term look at this? So in the long term, you know, is there a conversation about a millage and an EMS tax, you know, fire tax, you know, that whole component tree, which I do think is a conversation we should have in the fall with the budget and that piece of it. Prior to that, it's a question of saying, is a per diem, per call scenario manageable? Is it manageable for a few months that allows an opportunity to start contributing and then measuring and determining, okay, is that adequate? Is it not adequate? Is the number appropriate? Is it not appropriate? I sort of feel like we can do both, you know, where we have to have a bigger conversation to what the long-term plan might be, and in the short term, a per diem gives us the flexibility to say, if after a month or a couple of months it's not working adequately, we can stop doing it, or we can adjust it, you know, in terms of that. So, I mean, I think I support the notion of passing the resolution we have and doing the per call payment going forward, while also sort of in the bigger picture saying, let's make sure that this is a budget conversation item so that we can make a longer term determination and decision for the fall and beyond to whether or not we should be, how we should be funding, and if we should be funding, to what degree should we be funding. So I think there's two pieces to it. So that's my 2 cents on that. Lou, what are your thoughts in terms of the situation?
Well, you want us to approve a resolution providing funding for just skip back. Well, there's 4 service providers, 4 ambulance providers. So by doing this, you're isolating one. Do all 4 get a per call piece? That's a question for Dan.
That is not proposed. My thought process was, if somebody would like to discuss Worcester funding them, I think that they should be coming to us rather than proactively doing it. Now, look,
I understand. Yeah. I think by doing it this way, which I don't know if I agree yet, the other 3 are sitting out there waiting, and they're going to come in tomorrow. So I think we need. I would like to table this, and I think we need more homework. But you got to make it fair for all of them. And again, I have experience. I'm on this end of town, Lower Providence and Plymouth, have both taken my wife to the hospital because she's clumsy. Now, whatever.
I don't think that Linda would appreciate that,
Oh,
but
my
we'll
God,
see.
let's not go with that one, but we got a lot of miles in ambulances for her. I just want to be fair to everybody. I'm not against any of this. I think it's got to be done, and if that skip back, again, they have a millage, and they've spent over $100,000 to their contributor, but they only have one provider. Am I correct on that statement? Skip back has one provider only?
Skip back
Correct.
has one. We have 4, but we don't have 4 at, overwhelmingly Skip back covers our overwhelmingly, but not,
I mean,
it's not by it's by the number of calls. When we look at it, it's close to it's between 60 and 80%, but I understand what you're saying. It's not 100%.
it's not a perfect situation.
Yep.
I just think that we need to do our homework. So this was Halloween, everybody gets the same amount of candy. I don't know how to put it nicer than that, but, I mean,
Well, if somebody doesn't come to my door, they don't get the candy. I mean, I don't know. You're right. But we can,
we can't pick and choose, but
we could find a lot of reasons not to do it.
correct.
We're good at that. I don't know that it's perfect. I do think it's good enough as a starting point. If the others come forward, I think we can have a same conversation with them. They're not going to be apples to apples with Skip Back because they're going to have other funding sources or other funding situations. It is a little bit haphazard right now. I mean, the EMS is not coordinated across the state in any way currently.
I got a better question.
Sure.
How many calls in the year of '24, I don't know if Dan has this info, did Skip Back serve Worcester?
634.
Times 225, and what's your number? Get your phone out.
Well, and let me be clear, it would be approximately 450 because we are not, part of the resolution is they have to recognize subscriptions. So if someone subscribed to them or any other of the other three, they have to essentially recognize those subscriptions. So Meadowood essentially subscribes their entire population. So it's approximately 450, which leaves you at around $101,000. It would have been $101,000 for 2024.
So by doing this, we're essentially comparing ourselves to the same amount of contribution that Skip Back does to their
Correct.
provider.
Well,
I'm just trying to make it simple for everybody to understand this.
yeah, the
Ballpark,
225 is, that takes us to about the same number.
And then we are,
But not accounting if they're getting more FRISBOT. We don't know what the millage might be going and how they might be splitting that.
No.
We're
Yeah,
just sort
but
of trying to,
0.1292.
I'm not digging into that.
EMS
Yeah.
millage
Yeah,
and a
that's
fire
fine.
millage of the same amount.
let's not confuse all of that one, but their presentation was a little challenging, and again, I looked for the video, I couldn't find it again. Again, I'm for doing our due process, and based on what you're saying is we can amend this every month, but again, it would need 2 members to amend it every month if we find it not fulfilling our,
well, correct.
so.
But what I'm saying to you, what I am committing to is certainly we should, as part of our budget conversation, have a bigger discussion about EMS and fire and those areas. I mean, certainly I'm supportive of that too.
I am also.
So, and we do have a third member who's also listening in
Yeah,
and
I'm
can
with
speak
you.
too.
Again, it only takes 2 to make this motion, but I'm just trying to be fair to everybody, and based
I
on the
agree.
information you're telling me, we are contributing probably a little less than Skip Back does to their own, but the other 3 carriers, we gotta
Yes,
address. And again, you're saying that they're also gonna be exempt if they have their own subscription, so if they participate in Skip Back's thing, then we're not gonna pay their $225 because they already are getting funded by their own subscription.
Correct. At some future time, if the board were to decide they wanted to extend this agreement to the other 3.
3
or
services?
Part of that deal would be that they have to recognize
Subscriptions
subscriptions to any of the other 3. So, say Skip Back's out and and Plymouth needs to cover them, but they go to somebody whose house is covered by a Skip Back ambulance
I understand.
subscription,
Make it,
nobody's getting $225 for that.
they've been paid.
Bingo.
I'm just trying to make the public, again, I'm working for the taxpayer, so.
I agree.
So that's the get for us, essentially, is that those things are recognized, and if we do want to, cap this or figure out what the maximum amount we want to, that's certainly something that we can tweak and change. If it looks like, we want
It's
to.
out of control, we can amend it, we can stop it.
100%. Yeah, 100%. We're not obligated to do it because it's a resolution, not an ordinance that you have to repeal. It's a lot more control over it on a month-to-month basis.
Based on that explanation, I think we're okay with this then.
Okay. So Steve, do you want to chime in with your 2 cents?
Yes, Rick, just a couple of comments. This has been an ongoing communication with Skip Back for at least 4 to 6 years. They've come to the township on numerous occasions looking for help. And I think as supervisors, we have a duty about the health and welfare about the residents of our township. Things have changed in Skip Back, and I think it's time for Worcester to step to the plate and help them out so our residents can be serviced by Skip Back. If not, I hate to be the one to see Skip Back go under. So I'm in favor of this moving forward in order to serve our residents in our township.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate those comments. So Lou, if you would like to make a motion on this, or would you like me? What are your thoughts?
I just don't like the way it's worded, so it's like, I just wish we included the other three. It says you're providing funding to one, and again, I wish we had a better.
If that's something you want me to look into, I'm happy.
I'd like to table this and reword this, okay? I'm sorry, I just want to make sure everybody's included, so that we're not leaving anybody out and providing it for
We
everybody.
could always add it next month as well, if that's makes you more comfortable. It's up to you.
I'd like to have a motion, I'd like to pass it.
I know you want to, I know you do.
And that's why I'm happy to make the motion. We can, your call, though. If you don't want to make it, I'll make it.
Take your motion.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve a resolution providing funding to Skip Back EMS as presented. Steve, I'll need you to second if you would like to.
I will gladly second that motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment regarding the motion on the floor? Bob?
Bob Andor in Worcester. This might take my whole 5 minutes. I'll start off because I don't want to be misinterpreted on this. First and foremost, I am not opposed to providing some additional funding support to EMS firms that provide services to Worcester Township for the valuable services they provide. Because this is a significant funding expense, the appropriate mechanism should have been to budget this activity and identify the expected annual expenses and the anticipated revenue sources, if any, and allow the residents to agree, disagree, comment, modify any of these activities. For whatever reason or reasons, the staff did not include this activity within the budget, and this board did not approve this as an expenditure. Nonetheless, the township typically has a significant surplus annually, but we should identify and enumerate what the overall exposure to the township will be. How those expenses will be covered. Is it a one-time or annual expense? You're now kind of just saying, we'll go along and we'll see how it's going, and then we'll modify or amend it. You don't have a cap, and you're just saying at some point you might just cut these people off. What if you reach that expenditure limit and you then are excluding others who are providing those same services? So we should put together a detailed evaluation of EMS funding and services to allow the residents to fully understand the impact of these costs and make comments for the board to consider, rather than addressing this as a simple motion with an unlimited exposure and no detailed analysis. At our last meeting, it was my understanding that the board had requested the manager to perform such a review and analysis. And all we have received to date is the majority of what was in that presentation was previously on the website, and it miraculously disappeared, including the video of the previous presentation. Don't know where it went. Curious. And now we get a regurgitation of that information, somehow suggesting that that's the detailed analysis that was put together. There might be additional information that was, if an analysis was done, I would think that that would be presented to us in advance so that we could kind of look at that. In my opinion, there should be an analysis of the services that they would provide, as well as the other providers. Here's a first simple question. How many EMS calls came to Worcester in 2024?
What was the number you gave him, I thought?
Yeah, just skip back or just in general?
No.
Slightly under 1,000 is what you're looking at.
It should be a finite number. I'm curious. If you did an analysis, then you would,
I'm unclear on what information you would like to see, Bob. I just would like to know what analysis that you would like to see so I could get a better idea of what I need to, what you'd like me to provide.
let me finish this, and then I'll address that, and we can kind of come back to that. If Worcester is part of the funding problem, we should look to be part of the solution. But we don't know, beyond Skip Back telling us that we're part of the problem, and that they have a significant drain because of one of their township constituents, the prison, is not paying and doesn't contribute enough. And them also telling us that we're part of the problem because we don't contribute anything. That's not necessarily true. We do contribute. We contribute through a series of insurance payments that go to them, government payments through Medicare and Medicaid, private pay, as well as when those payments are not sufficient, they send out an additional billing. They haven't articulated to us any of that funding that Worcester is providing. So it is entirely possible, maybe unlikely, that we are contributing our fair share for the point of the services that we use. And if they have a deficiency and it's not due to Worcester, I don't know that we need to be helping to make them whole. And that could be true of the other three providers as well. The appropriate analysis or evaluation should look at all of the EMS vendors, not just Skip Back. This presentation is for Skip Back. Look at how many calls they provide, each of them, when those calls took place, who fulfilled those calls, because in many cases, Skip Back gets the call but doesn't fulfill that requirement. And then understand exactly how much money Worcester residents are contributing to their coffers for the service that they're providing to our residents. So this is only, and we shouldn't just discount subscription calls in Meadowood in general. They're all part of Worcester. So we should look at what those are. I'm not quite sure I even understand the whole subscription analysis, meaning I don't know if they have a reciprocal agreement. If I was to get a subscription, I don't know that Skip Back would be my provider. So I buy a subscription with them. Do they honor somebody else's subscription? I don't know. Do I get subscriptions from everybody to try and ensure that I'm not going to have those additional costs? I don't know. It's all part of how that analysis should be done. We need to understand how EMS calls are dispatched. I don't know that for a fact, and I'll point to you.
So Bob, I'm going to ask you to make your comments and move forward. It's not a dissertation. I respect everything you have to say, Bob, but it's at a certain point, I just want you to say it, and we'll move forward. We typically try to limit it to 5. I've never limited anybody on public comment. I'd ask you to say what you have to say and move forward, please.
I don't know that I even made 5 minutes yet, but that's fine. It would have been nice to see an analysis that completed. So, Christian, could you bring the maps up, the 2 colored maps? Just 2 pages up. So specifically, when you look at that, Skip Back came in here and they said they do the majority of our calls. So this first map is Monday to Friday, 8 to 5. That equates to 40 hours a week. That 40 hours is less than a quarter of the hours during the work week. And it works out to be 84% of the township for less than 25% of the time. You could just down one next page. The majority of the time, this is the balance of the week and the weekends, that's 3/4 of the time. Skip back only represents 18% of our township, a minority, whereas Plymouth has over half of that. I'm curious, how many calls does Plymouth get? Do those calls take into account the time that Monday to Friday? I mean, those calls are coming in across the board all week, all on the weekend.
240 is the answer to that question.
Perfect. That would have been great for a presentation, so we knew how many calls these other people are getting and understanding those calls that these other providers are, so we have an understanding of what our exposure is. If you even look at the discussion last month, or maybe even the month prior, was to discount an EMS tax wholesale, not even entertain that. Whereas I don't know the numbers because we don't publish them, but if we were providing an EMS tax comparable to skip back at that same millage rate, and I'm guessing what our tax base is by backing into it, our contribution, our EMS contribution would be about $125,000 or $127,000 annually. That would be split among those 4 providers and be split fairly so that each of them is receiving some compensation for the services that they're providing for our township. There is no analysis. I thought that's what we were asking for. And all we got was a sales pitch for skip back. And I think that we should do a better understanding for what our exposure is, as well as what's fair to these other people, as opposed to, well, skip back came in. I mean, the other 3 are going to come in if they find out that we're giving money away. And I don't disagree with that. And 225 might be a fair number. Might be light. It might be too much. And we haven't done an analysis. And if we did the analysis, unfortunately, it hasn't been shared with us for us to understand that you did do the work that you said you were going to do. So I think it's unfair. If this expense got to be, previously the manager said that this expense could be up to $225,000 or $250,000. I don't have that number right in front of me. If that's the case, that represents 5% of your budget. That's significant. I don't think you're focusing on it fairly for the rest of us to comment.
Just to be clear, I do have those numbers. I left them out because this is for skip back specifically, but 240 for Plymouth, 74 for Lansdale, 92 for Lower Providence, and 673 for skip back.
Are those
The 2024 numbers at the
Are
end.
those the dispatch calls, or are those the calls for service that they actually provided?
Those are the calls for service they actually provided. So ultimately, yes, the coverage maps are what they are, but from a service call standpoint, skip back does handle the vast majority of our calls.
I have to take your word for it because I didn't have any data other than what's in the presentation to kind of go through and verify that. But it would suggest, as you look at the maps, that would not necessarily be the case. So I don't know that we want to just take skip back's word for it and have a significant funding shortfall. The work can be done. We can understand it.
Thank you for your comments, Bob. Does anybody else wish to make a comment on the motion that is on the floor? In the back?
My name's Vicki Petrie. I live in Worcester.
Hold on. Sit. You don't mind?
My name is Vicki Petrie. I live in Worcester. And full disclosure, I am a volunteer at Skipback EMS.
Okay.
I'm an EMT. I've been there since I became an EMT in 2013. I went to Skipback to volunteer because they cover my house. I'm one of Steve's neighbors.
Okay.
The reason we came to Worcester is because we are going to be reaching a shortfall. To answer some of his questions, I do our calls. I'm the one that sends Christian the call log every month. Hi, Christian. We are doing this to try and maintain the service that we provide to Worcester Township and have since way beyond me becoming an EMT. I did not bring numbers along. I could have given him some of the numbers that he wants because I have, for the last 4 years, kept our call logs. I have those numbers at home. Unfortunately, I did not bring my laptop, so I can't provide them. He was questioning the first map and then this second map. Most of Worcester's calls are during the day. There are not many that happen at night. And going off the top of my head, 3/4 of them are during the day. We do have instances on weekends where weekends get a little busier, but a lot of our calls are during the day, which is why we have the station up at Meadowwood during the day. We do have it up on Saturdays also. So it's Monday through Saturday from 8 to 5. As a Worcester Township resident, I would want my township to help provide an EMS service. I would want them to help pay for it. EMS is facing a critical crisis across the country, not just here in Pennsylvania, not just here in Montgomery County. Insurance does not pay enough. Medicare usually does not pay enough to cover what our calls cost us. Our ambulances, and in the presentation there's costs. New ambulance can easily cost $350,000 unloaded. That doesn't include the stretcher that we use to get you in. That doesn't include the lift system to get the stretcher into the ambulance so that our providers aren't getting hurt. It doesn't include the monitor that can allow the medic to see what your heart's doing. That you get, it does an EKG just like your doctor's office would. Doesn't include any of those other equipment, the Lucas device, our stair chairs, any of the lifting equipment, any of the basic equipment that we need to take care of somebody. That's just the ambulance. We would like to work with Worcester to keep us able to help to do the funding, to keep us in business so that we can continue to provide that service to the township. And it's important to me because I live in this township. This is my home. It has been for 23 years. So I would hope that you would consider, I understand the concerns with the money and the fact that it's not budgeted. I do appreciate that you are considering doing the per call, and I would strongly love to work with you guys to work with something to do that it can be budgeted, so that all of those numbers that everybody wants to see can be out front and personal. We're not hiding anything. We're not trying to. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you, Vicki. Ed?
I'll try and be brief. Ed Moore, Worcester. I want to make two things here. In January, I believe the supervisor from Skipback Township, and it came up here earlier, made the point that they were not being reimbursed from Graterford. Given that we're entering into a vested financial relationship here, can we help or participate in whatever effort is being made to get Graterford to support Skipback EMS? That's just a statement.
Okay.
Two, I fully support doing this. 35-year resident of Worcester, I fully support doing this. I look at what we do and fully support the funding that is given to Worcester Fire Company every year. These folks at Skip-Ack are doing God's work as well. And the fact is that people in our township are probably much more likely to avail themselves of Skip-Ack services than they are the fire companies. So I think it's pretty imperative that we give them this, at least the same consideration that we give to the fire company. I know one carries the name Skip-Ack, the other carries the name Worcester. I think they both serve this similar purposes, regardless of what municipality they happen to be named for. That's it.
Thank you, Ed. Appreciate your comments. Christine?
Christine Steer, Baton Road. I had a couple comments. I agree with my fellow residents and with the board that we definitely need to support our EMS just as much as we support our fire department. So I'm in favor of funding overall. I have two comments. One, with regard to the resolution specifically, it doesn't really say in the resolution whether it's going to be retroactive or when it's going to start being active. It just says that Skip-Ack's going to start providing quarterly invoices. We're already in March of the first quarter of this year. Is that starting in 2025? If it's starting in the next quarter, like when is it going to begin?
That's ultimately up to the board.
So if it's approved, it'll start today. I mean, it's.
So they could put in for this first quarter, if assuming.
Well,
it's-
today, no, the date. I mean, with the date of when the resolution passes, Christine. It's not retroactive in any way. It would be written into the resolution in that regard. But if the board decides to ultimately pass it tonight, then starting with calls tomorrow. I mean, I don't.
Right, what's the definition of a quarter then?
Every 3 months.
Every 3 months.
Every
Yeah,
three- every
Yeah,
3 months
yeah,
going
and
forward.
maybe, possibly this first one would be the last
A
bit.
prorated amount, simply accounting for.
Next quarter, I think it's, we can tweak it.
Sure, I just wanted to be clear on when it was starting, because the language wasn't, not precise.
Sure.
The second is, obviously, there have been other residents that have expressed concern about the cost and the lack of budgeting. Has there ever been any discussion or whether we could maybe put a cap, maybe do a per call up to a certain amount for this first calendar year, since there is concern about how much budgeting, how there's a lack of budgeting here, and we're talking about 225. Has there been any discussion that we'll pay 225 for a call, maybe looking at the average of the last 4 years? Our EMS professional mentioned that she has numbers for the last 4 years, doing an average and saying we're going to pay 225 up to a certain amount for this first calendar year. Any discussion?
So we didn't put a cap on it to start with, and ultimately the determination was that in any 30-day period, if we had to make a rapid adjustment, then we would, because we get the information every month. It's in the packet every month, tells you how many calls happen in every individual month, and in every cadence that we would need or ultimately want, we can. There's no question that we can modify what we're doing, and certainly we've heard a cross-section of thoughts on that, and ultimately a bigger conversation about a long-term budgeting process to address, how this should be handled on a longer term. So it's not intended to be perfect out of the gate. I think the comments have been clear in that regard, but it's a first step on something. It's a move forward on something, and ultimately we adjust accordingly. But no, we did not ultimately think that it was necessary to have a cap initially.
Okay, well, that's, again, I do support it, so, thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Does anybody else wish to make any, Bill?
Bill McGrain, Stump Hall Road. So I've been up here speaking about this for the last, now it's 3 months. I was in the gallery for other presentations. And again, as Bob and everybody here, we all support this idea. I'm a little disappointed in my neighbors here who gave a very passionate plea for the services provided, but focused on the numbers say they're 2/3 of our service. 675 out of 1,000. That's 2/3, okay, math, whatever, however we figure this out. Those other three organizations are still providing something, 1/3 of it, which is a significant thing, not a number yet. But I think it's just, they need an advocate just as much as Skipback does. Just because Skipback sent somebody up here and tried to bully us into something doesn't mean those other three organizations don't deserve something or some consideration. So I've expressed my opinion here multiple times. I've sent it in writing, suggestions and thoughts. Again, we all support the concept, but there's a lot of flaws. I would say to move ahead for just one, I don't know that that's a fair thing for us to do. So that's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Anybody else wish to make any public comment regarding the motion that is on the floor? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain from the vote to the wording.
Fair enough. Passes 2-0 with one abstention. Next up, we have other business. Does anybody wish to bring any other business before the board this evening? I do not.
I have one thing.
Okay.
We did in January, we did for the Berwick wastewater treatment plant, we did make a motion, and I believe I made the comment that we were going to make amendments to it. I don't know if there was any presentation to the amendments that we made to that wastewater treatment plant, or are we just going to?
No, sir, I was not directed to write any amendments. If there's anything that the board would like me to look into amendment-wise, I'd be happy to look at it.
I just want to know if we're, just to clarify that, that we were, again, it's in the minutes that the attorney stated that if we didn't do anything, we could be sued. Well, we could be sued every time, every day for everything, but I just want a clarification on.
My understanding, it was a motion to submit the capital improvements plan to DEP upon receipt of financial security for the potential upgrades from BET, the developer of CityView.
To take the developer out of the picture, we're required to do this anyway.
We would be required to, if additional development were to come in,
yes,
we would be required to file a plan on how we were going to handle an organic overload issue at that plant, which would be caused by that additional development.
So it's all in planning and potential. It's not, and nothing's approved. So
correct. Say CityView were to disappear tomorrow,
right.
Another developer came in, the ask would be the same from them.
We're still required to file something for the DEP on our wastewater treatment plant, all of them.
Correct, meaning they would absolutely need any developer, not just the potential CityView developer, any developer would need to.
Take the developers out of the picture. Do we get like a annual inspection, or do we file an annual report that our wastewater treatment plant?
We file a Chapter 94 report with DEP on
every
an
year
annual basis for all of our treatment plants.
And that we're up to whatever the criteria may be. So we are.
John can probably clarify this better than me. My understanding is we're right there on the edge of an organic overload issue.
Just Berwick.
As it stands, but an additional development that would flow into that plant would trigger.
Would require improvement.
Required improvement to basically mitigate that issue.
Okay.
Is that?
That's correct.
Okay.
I do want to make a clarification. It's a CAP plan, correction action plan, that's required. I think you misspoke when you named it.
You pull the mic, George, a little closer there, John.
So essentially, any new connections that would go to Berwick would kick in the correction action plan. So with the CityView and the West Room, with those apartments and the new townhomes, there's a significant amount of additional sewage flows that will be going to Berwick Treatment Plant, and that's where the correction action plan is actually being implemented by.
And what I would add to that, John, I think, and correct me if this is incorrect, but because it's part of our 537 area, it has to be done. We can't not do it. We can't simply say, don't submit it. Ultimately, it's an area that we've recognized for public sewer in our 537 plan. Those are just the connections that would trigger what we've already said we would cover for sewer. Is that correct?
Correct. The original 537 plan that was done in 2000 included these areas as public sewer areas.
Gotcha.
And I just.
Do you need more info? Do you want to?
As long as it's in the minutes and it's been noted that I'm asking for a clarification. And that Dan will follow up with some form of, we're doing our due diligence to do our process. We're on top of it. We're not.
Anything you want from me?
We're not in fail.
No, and just to be clear, any improvements that are done should be looked at. Any type of improvement is done, it's an infrastructure improvement. Just like we make developers widen roads, improve intersections, it's just a different type of infrastructure. So it's not uncommon, and while we haven't done sewer improvements like this before, we've obviously required developers to improve intersections and widen roads and add turn lanes. It's truly no different than that. It's just a different type of township infrastructure. So just get that on the record.
But right now, we're in compliance, and whether we're on the edge or not, we're in.
Yeah, as of right now,
we're not failing.
We're fine.
Correct.
Berwick is not failing. I want to.
Correct. Berwick is not failing.
I was questioned by the public, and I wanted to clarify that we are not.
Berwick is not failing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good enough? Okay. Last up, we have public comment. If everybody would wish to make any additional public comment this evening. Seeing none, then motion to adjourn. Thank you all for coming.
Motion.